All right. So this talk is about, I'm going to show you how we use Userbrain at Clockk and why I love it. I'm going to try to keep it short so that there's time for Q&A, because the only thing that's better than listening to me talk is listening to you talk. So I'm looking forward to hearing your questions. I'm also really excited to see that we have some UX designers, because Clockk has a whole lot of UX problems, and I'm actually working on a thorny one right now. So maybe we'll even have time for you to weigh in a little bit. I would really value your input. So what is Clockk? Oh, there it is. What is Clockk? So thanks for answering the question. I'm glad to see that half of you have had to do timesheets before. And so if you've had to do timesheets, you know that there's one truth about timesheets, and that is that they suck. They are just a pain in the butt to do. And the worst thing about them is trying to remember what you did. The second worst is that the state of the art right now is start-stop timers. So if you start working on something, you click start, you do your work, you're finished, you click stop, you start the timer for a different project, and you keep working again. But the problem is you're getting interrupted all day long with emails and text messages and Slack messages and things that are coming at you from all sorts of different projects and different clients as you go, which basically, once you're past 3 or 4 projects in a day, there's no way your time tracking is accurate. So Clockk is designed to free you from that by adding some trackers to your experience. We track what you do, the web apps you use, or the apps you use, the websites you visit, your email, your calendar, and then we try to give you a visualization of your day. So I'm also gonna, that's what Clockk is. I'm also going to go through the Userbrain, our testing workflow, and how user testing insights are shaping Clockk. And I'm going to get into a few tips for creating awesome user tests based on our experience. Now, those of you who have had experience doing testing before, I'd also welcome your thoughts, because I can always learn more and improve. But this is just kind of what we've come up with that we've really enjoyed working with. So first, I want to say that Userbrain testers are awesome. They take the time to do what you ask. You write them instructions, you can hear them read the instructions, they think about it, they process it, they're thoughtful. Okay, that's reason number 2. They try to do a good job. And they read all the instructions. So every bit that you write down, they'll read it. Sometimes they're still like working, so they do miss things. There's a little bit of nuance to that, but they really try their best. Now, there is one warning about Userbrain testers. They read the instructions. So as any UX designer knows, real users don't read instructions. They just click like mad until something works or doesn't. So Userbrain testers are going to give you skewed results because they will read instructions and then do what the instructions say. So you kind of have to trick them into not reading instructions, or ask them questions that kind of spin the problem on its head, so that they look at the problem from a different angle. And so it's not about the instructions that they're reading, but rather about their understanding of the tool. So what is Clockk? I already described that. What's hard about Clockk? Basically, where our challenge is onboarding. Onboarding is really hard because we have Mac OS and Windows software. So if you're a Mac OS user, you have to install, and there are a bunch of steps that you have to go through to enable the tracking. Windows is a bit simpler, but so we've got the 2 trackers that you have to install. So users have to be able to do that on their computer. Then we have a browser extension that you install into your browser. And then you can set up email and calendar. So there's a bunch of stuff that you have to do to actually unlock the full power of Clockk. And that flow is really hard to do. And because the user is coming in and out of Clockk as they go, there are lots and lots of opportunities for bugs. And so that's where Userbrain testing comes in. It gives us the opportunity to look for bugs. Sometimes the users don't even see those bugs, but we see them because we know what we're looking for. Like a checkbox doesn't appear fast enough because the WebSocket doesn't work, or whatever, or things just flat out don't work because you can't test everything on your own computer. Much as we try, there's nothing like a clean computer that's never seen Clockk before to run into all of the problems. And then there's also the function of confusion or successful completion. Did they make it through what we wanted them to do? Did they get all the way to the end? And more importantly, where were they confused? Where did they run stuck? Where did they pause and just sort of look and go, okay, and then click around and figure out their way? Because there's a lot of opportunity in those awkward moments during the test for us to improve our software. So this is our basic process. We don't do any mass tests. We'll never run 10 or 100 tests at a time. That's not interesting to us. So what we'll do is we'll deploy a version of the software, and then we'll run one test. And we wait for the results to come in, which usually takes 15, well, probably about half an hour, because the test itself is about 15 minutes. And then so blah, blah, blah. The test comes in, we analyze the results. So we all sit around on a computer in like this Userbrain viewing party, and we all watch what happens, and we pause, and we're like, we just kind of dissect what the user is doing as they go. And then wherever they fail, we'll make some changes to the code, deploy a new version, and run another test. So we go back to step 2. And we keep going back to step 2, constantly fixing things and making it go smoothly until we have 3 consecutive test passes. If we get 3 people going all the way through front to back, and there's minimal confusion, and they're able to do the software, and we can't or do all the things, and we can't just explain it off as like this person just didn't understand, or they missed the boat, then we know that the software is going to be good for most people. Now, obviously, Userbrain testers are going to be more on the skilled side of software installation, but they still are kind of representative. Like if they can get through it with a minimum of trouble, then a more technically challenged user is going to be able to get through it with just a little bit more work or a bit more help documentation on our end. Okay, so looking my notes, screeners. So Userbrain offers some filters and screeners, which we use. But then we also ask the same questions again in the test, because sometimes people don't understand the nuance of the question that they're asking. So what we'll just flat out say is like, what time tracking software have you used now in the past? So forgive me. In the screener, we ask if they've used time tracking before. Then in the test itself, we ask, have you actually done this? Like, really, can you answer the question honestly? We stump a lot of people there. And then we kind of discount their test a little bit, because if they had to go and look up what a time tracker was, they probably weren't the right ones for us. So here's another example of what we do to just kind of stop users and give them like all the frameworks so they can bow out right at the beginning of the test. We say, this is what you're going to do. You're going to be trying out a new productivity tool called Clockk Insight. Here are some requirements for the test that you need to know these things. You're using a desktop computer. You've got a browser that's either like all of the basic requirements. And this is what you're going to do during the test. And if you can't do this, get out now while it's early, so that we don't get bad data in our test and they don't waste their time. However, sometimes people will still go through this. And I'm just going to say a little side note, the Userbrain people are great. We just send them a little note and say, this person didn't do the test, or they didn't actually pass the screener. And we get that credit put back in our account. So it's really, they're great to work with. So here are some of the questions that we would ask. We ask a lot of in your own words kinds of questions. So echo back to us what we're saying so that we can see that you actually understand us. So we land them right onto the Clockk Insight landing page, read through the page, and tell us what it is. And then we break up everything into very discrete steps, so that like if you have more than one instruction per task, people get confused or they miss a step or something like that. So it's really helpful to break it up into different tests. So sign up to Clockk Insight using a real email address. And then next step, install the trackers and connect your email. You're finished this when 4 of 5 check marks are green. And let's hope that we don't have any bugs in our software and the check marks actually turn green, because we did have that problem and one guy just spun his wheels for a long time. Long time. I still feel kind of bad for that guy. So here are the questions where we ask, can you describe in your own words what you just saw? Like, why did you see this? What's the benefit? How would you use this? Who would use this? Why would you use this? So we kind of told it to them in the messaging at the beginning when we said, read through the page. Do they remember that value prop at the end of the day and at the end of the test? And can they connect it to the specifics of what they did during the test? Does it help them? Or did they understand? Because if they understood, then we're on to something. Then the comprehension is there. So that means a user off the street, not a Userbrain user, is probably also going to understand. Off in the top right, I've got the different kinds of questions that you can ask people. So the tasks are just these ones here where you ask them to do something. You can give them a rating scale question, multiple choice, single choice, written response. I recommend only ever using tasks. So what we do is we always watch every test front to back. We might speed them up a little bit, but we watch every test. If you want to get into the head of a user, you can't do big ratings. People will fight and struggle to get through a tool, and then they'll give you 5 out of 5 for how easy it is to use, because they're not thinking about that. Because once they got through to the end, they feel successful. So, oh yeah, 5 out of 5, I was able to complete. But it's by watching the video unfold that you really see where they struggle. And written responses, there's nothing more boring than watching somebody type and talk at the same time, especially if they're slow typers. So I just have people narrate their answers right on the recording, because they're recording as they go. And that's just really helpful. Okay, next slide. Oh, there we go. Sorry, I'm now checking my notes to see what I was trying to say here. Oh, yes, this is what it is. This is how Userbrain made us better. So this is the recent Clockk Insight onboarding that we were working on. And as you can see here on the screen, this is taken from one of the videos. This is the first video that we had a Userbrain tester record. And there are, what you can see here are 4 steps, but there's actually 5 steps that a user had to do. And we didn't notice with the first one, but by about the 4th test that we ran through, we noticed people would come in and they would see that list of 5 tests and they go, you could just see the exhaustion in their eyes because they saw 5 things that they had to do. And they're like, oh, I don't want to do 5 things. And it's only by watching people go through the test that you notice those little subtle things. We can't even see their face, but it's that little sigh of, oh, do I really have to do 5 things? So we changed the view a little bit. And so we changed it so that they only have 2 things to do. Step 1, install the browser extension. Step 2, install the desktop app. And then we tricked them. When they got those 2 done, we showed them the other 2. We said, hey, welcome, you're ready to go. Everything's ready, but you can also connect your email address and connect your calendar. No one gave us any problem. In their experience, in their heads, they always had 4 tasks to do. They never had 2. When we just added 2, they just did 2 more, as though that was what was supposed to do. But it's only by paying attention that we heard that little bit of tacit nonverbal feedback that helped us to optimize our onboarding so that people are less frustrated and more likely to complete. And indeed, we see users creating their accounts and they are completing, like one after another. Every user that's coming in, they're getting all the way through the onboarding 90% of the time, which is really exciting because it means that Userbrain has worked for us. So at this point, I've got space for questions. I have another thing that I could show. I'm kind of going to give it to Euan to say if you'd like me to show the other thing that we spoke about earlier, or should we stop here and go to Q&A?
Sure, I'm perfectly happy for you to show the other thing. We have more than enough time for a Q&A.
Okay.
And that's as well, guys. If you have any questions at all, either for Paul about his experience with Userbrain or about Clockk, or you have something maybe more generally about Userbrain for me, then please do add it to the Q&A. I'll also keep an eye on the chat too. So
Okay.
take it away, Paul.
Okay. So I'm going to go to a different slideshow. So this is actually, I was just working on it this morning, and this is why I'm excited to have UX designers in here. So you might want to stick around for the next 2 hours and just give me ideas. One of the things that's really hard about Clockk is the first user experience. When somebody signs up for Clockk the first time, unlike all the other software out there where you can sign up and do things right away, because what you have to do is install trackers, we're basically saying to people, hey, welcome to Clockk, install these trackers. Okay, now go away. We don't want to see you here for the next 4 hours while you actually go and do work. And what people want to do is they want to interact with the software, but we can't let them do that because there's nothing to interact with until we've tracked enough information. And then on the flip side, once we track information, we're kind of overwhelming them with details. Anyway, what we're doing here is I'm creating, basically I'm going to distribute this slideshow to them, and they're going to be able to step through it. So Userbrain testers, I should say, Userbrain testers are going to go through this, and they're going to just kind of talk their way through it. So these are the questions that I'm going to ask. So scenario, I always paint the scenario first. You're a freelancer. You're required to track your time. You work on multiple projects. You're frustrated by your current tool. You've recently learned of a tool called Clockk that's going to make your life easier. Here's scenario page 2. Clockk is an AI-powered time tracker. There's what it is. Once you set it up, it's easy, but the first user experience is hard. In this test, we will be presenting you with various screenshots from Clockk with different wording. We want you to tell us what those words mean to you. I find setting the scenario is really helpful. And the Userbrain testers that you'll see, they're actually going to read through this word for word as they kind of internalize what it is that they're doing. So then they'll get to the next slide. Each slide will show you a picture and ask one or more questions. Please take the time to respond thoughtfully, respond out loud, don't skip ahead. So here's question 1. This is what you see. You signed up for an account at Clockk. You've spent the last 15 minutes doing some work on your computer. You return to Clockk and you see this screen. Describe what you see. What does the word assign mean to you? What do you think will happen when you click assign? Basically, this is the crux of our challenge with Clockk, getting people to understand what assign means. And I was recently, it's hard for us to, some users come out the other side and they're killing it, and they get it, that something clicks for them, they get the aha moment about Clockk, and they're off to the races. But most users kind of fall apart at this point. They don't understand why they're doing what they're doing. So that's why I want to ask these questions. Describe what you see. What does this word mean to you in this context? And what do you think will happen? And then I show them what's going to happen. And remember, you're a first-time user. What does this mean? What's your next step? So what are you going to do? And then question 3. I've now changed the wording, because this is what I want to learn from users. What's a better word for this problem? This is something one of our users suggested. He suggested using the words one-off, assign, or train. So again, I just want to ask the Userbrain testers, how do you react to this word? How is it better than assign? What does one-off assign mean to you? What does train mean to you? How do these differ? Why are you going to use one or the other? And I kind of get into it. So for this work shown, are you going to use one-off assign, or are you going to use train, and why? So, and a little bit more, here's just another screenshot from Clockk and a few different versions. Which one of these is the one that means most to you? And then last question here, I actually define the difference, and I'm going to hide that from you in case anyone has any ideas. So I don't want to bias you too much. But yeah, that's kind of what we're going to do. I was hoping to actually already run this test today so I could show you the first bit of feedback, but I didn't get that far along. So with that, I think I'm going to stop here and turn it over to Euan, or to kind of run the rest.
Yeah, sure. we have a few Q&A. First of all, thanks very much for that, Paul. I think that was really good to see like the nuance of what you're doing, and it's always, again, it's always, you know, really interesting to hear these kind of in-depth insights from users like yourself who are actually using the Userbrain platform to its full potential. And yeah, as Mubdu says in the chat, thanks, Paul. Great presentation.
Oh, Mubdu. Hey, this is, you're the Mubdu I know, right?
Oh, wow.
Yes,
They've met
yes.
before.
Yeah,
He's
we're both fellow startups here in Halifax, Nova Scotia.
Oh,
Nice to see you,
wonderful.
Mubdu. I haven't run into you in a while because of, well, COVID.
That's fantastic. It's a small world at the Userbrain webinar. But yeah, I see we've got two Q&A questions. So the first one we had, both anonymous, which is absolutely fine. So I don't know who I'm addressing, but I'll just address everyone. So what is a good way to analyze or fix user drop-off on websites? So actually, Paul, I'd be really interested to hear your take on this first, purely because, you know, you're a founder, and I think that kind of user drop off or churn, you know, especially with an online tool, I guess that is something that needs to be understood, so that you can overcome it. So how do you analyze or fix any signs of user drop off?
Yeah, but that depends. Like, there are many different kinds of user drop off. Are you talking about the website itself, like your public facing marketing page? Are you talking about the people who are in your app and onboarding through the app and using it? But I think the fundamental question is, it's not really something for you to avoid. It's something for you to measure, because measurement is what matters. Because maybe a 5% completion rate is good, or sign up rate, or whatever that metric is. Maybe 50% is good. It depends on the quality of user you're bringing in at the top of the funnel, and the quality of user that you want coming out at the bottom of the funnel. So if you have a really wide funnel, you're going to have a really low conversion rate, and that's okay. On the other hand, if you have a really narrow funnel, but everyone's coming in highly qualified, then you're going to have a really high conversion rate. The important thing is measure it, and then look at why that number, try to think about why that number is what it is, and then think about ways that you can optimize that number, either by tightening the top of the funnel so that you have fewer people coming in, but they're more qualified, or by looking at, and this is where Userbrain comes in, when they come in, what's stopping them from going through all the rest of the way. But there's no right or wrong number. It's completely subjective, and every business is different and every scenario is different.
Yeah, that's a fantastic answer. Again, it's so subjective. And just one thing I would add to that, we do have a blog post on the Userbrain site, which is all about why only testing with your target demographic will hurt you. And I think it's just important to remember that not every one of your customers is the same. I mean, it goes without saying, but for some users, as Paul found out when testing Clockk, you know, what you maybe thought was an easy process, you know, whether it's going to a checkout or whether, you know, whatever it might be. For some users, there will be some kind of hidden issue there that you will discover. So what I would say is, if you are already testing, then maybe just expand who you're testing with a little bit, just kind of get outside of the box, and you'll probably discover something that you'll have that aha moment, and then you can really get down to the details and fix it, and hopefully that will help your drop-off rate. So thank you very much for the question. I'll just go on to the next one. So I'm in charge of crafting a UX department within our web design department. Any tips on things to ask in tests specifically for websites, non-product based design? My biggest piece of advice for user tests, and I posted again, a link to one of our kind of helpful blogs that we have about 5 things to avoid when writing tasks. My biggest piece of advice is, as Paul was saying, set the scene and really try and immerse your tester in a scenario. The worst thing I think you can do, or the worst mistake you can make, is really ask a tester directly, do you like this website? How's the usability? You really want to get them away from that. You want to put them into a almost like a role, so that they're kind of seeing the world through different eyes almost, and they're kind of in the right frame of mind to really test your website without actually feeling like they're testing it. So I don't have any direct questions that I could give you right now, because I don't know what it is that you do. But what I would say is really to try and immerse your participants as much as possible.
I would be, Euan is right. Like, you don't ever want to ask any question that can be answered with a yes or a no, because you're not going to get helpful answers from that, and people will tend to give you the answer that they think you want to hear. Instead, just like I said earlier, twist the whole problem on its head and just have them echo back to you what you said. So if you're doing website testing and users are going through, ask them what they read about. Like, what kind of product did you just look at? Who is it for? Why would they sign up for it? I mean, literally, this is stuff that you would be saying on your website. Did they pick that up? Did they actually read the content? And if they didn't, then there's an information problem that you might want to work on. Like, maybe your value prop needs to go up higher, or maybe you need to describe who you're for higher so that they see this. Because, I mean, they'll tell you all of this. It's so easy if you just ask them the question in such a way that they just have to echo things back to you.
Yeah, I completely agree. So thank you, Paul, for expanding on that a little bit. Again, from a founder's point of view, which I think is really, really interesting to have on the Userbrain webinar. So we've got another few of these. So I'll try and get through all of them as quickly as possible, but also trying to give good answers. I would also ask, what is the original user goal? Were they successful? Opportunities are there to retain them? I think this is maybe a follow-up to the question we had before about measuring the drop-off and fixing the drop-off. But yeah, I think we really got into detail with that one. So we'll just go on to the next question. Paul, what's the biggest surprise you got from running a user test, and how did it change your next development?
Yeah, actually, the biggest surprise in an early version of our onboarding, which was beautiful. Like, we just had the most beautiful design for it, and it flowed so smoothly once we got it nailed down. But we had people, what we were trying to do in the onboarding was increase their commitment to Clockk. We actually wanted users to drop off if they aren't going to be our ideal customer. But those who are going to be our ideal customer, we want them to go through a number of steps so they feel a connection to Clockk, like a sort of a time. If they make a time investment in us, then they're going to want to see it through. So we had this really beautiful but longer onboarding process. One of the questions was, enter your clients and projects that you're currently working with, which I think would be easy because I can rattle off the clients and projects that I'm working with. And we would see people onboarding and they'd get to that step and they would just stop dead. So all the steps before that were just like, what's your role? What's your name? What's your email address? All of those things they answered so quickly. And then tell us who your clients are and what projects you're working on. Bang, it stopped. Like, why are they stopping? And so we thought about this a little while, and because we watched a number of users struggle at this point, we figured the reason must be because asking them about who their clients and projects are is highly contextual. It's not where their brain is right now. And it's cognitively expensive because, again, it's not where their brain is right now. Right now, they're onboarding onto Clockk. They're not thinking about their clients and projects. They have to take themselves out of where they are, being Clockk, think about their work, come up with a client name, and then come back. And they just really want to complete the process. So they don't want to enter five clients and all the different projects. They really just want to get to the end so they can start using the software. So we removed that step, got much better completion rates, got people right into the app more. And basically we started just moving that, decreasing the size of that initial onboarding and just moving it so it was inside the app rather than before the app. And it's not what we expected, but specifically that cognitive hurdle of entering clients, we did not expect that. We were shocked when people got absolutely stuck there.
Thank you very much, Paul. Again, Guthrie, a great question and great answer. I see Carrie here has written, curious about finding testers with specific job titles or role for a B2B website test. That's quite common. We get that a lot. I see you have partner panels on your site, but can you explain that? Okay, so basically, if you're looking for specific job titles or roles, I think the best way and the most commonly used method is to use a screener question. Just bear in mind, depending on what you're looking for and depending on what time of day it is, it might take a little bit longer. If you're looking for rocket scientists, for example, it might take quite some time. Whereas, if you're looking for someone who's, working in sales or marketing, then it might be a bit quicker. So yeah, I would say that the best way to really filter by specific roles is to use our screener question. I'm just going to add in the link to our blog post. Again, it just explains a little bit about why we implemented them and what they are. Just remember what Paul said, though. It could be the case that whatever screening question that you put in, it could be the case that the tester either doesn't quite understand it, or maybe the tester just rushed through it and for whatever reason, so there is also the opportunity to add a second screener question. So maybe you can stage them. So, is your job title one of these 5 things, blah, blah, blah. And if they pick the right one, then through to the next section. But then maybe you can ask more specifically about what they do in their daily tasks. And that might help you to get the right people to do the test that you need so that you get the best results. Again, I just want to stress we have a 100% satisfaction guarantee with our tests. So if you do get a tester that has somehow slipped through the net and you receive feedback which is not useful to you at all, with no useful insights in there, please do let us know, and we will get that test credit refunded. So you can either get another tester or you can use it for your next testing round. So I hope that answers your question there, Carrie. We have a few more. I'm very conscious of the time. We'll try and get through as many as possible. So Trevor asks, does Userbrain have any sort of consulting feature, like if we want to talk to a pro for tips and such? Yes, we do kind of. We do have resident user testing specialists, and you can book a call with us for a 30-minute chat, and we can really dive in detail into what exactly it is that you want to do and what you need, because again, we understand, and that's why I asked the poll at the start, that a lot of us are completely new to user testing. We haven't done it before. We need that little bit of advice. Maybe it's the case where you're thinking about signing up at Userbrain, but then you might realize that actually it's not what you need right now. So the worst thing we would want was for you to sign up with us and then not use it, or so there's so many scenarios, and that's why we offer a free 30-minute consultation with a user testing specialist. And anyone who is on an agency or an enterprise package, you will actually have your own dedicated specialist. that you can contact at any point. We also have a great customer support team, which is run by my colleague Jonathan, who usually hosts the webinar. That's why there's been a few technical hitches today, because it's me left to my own devices. But yeah, I hope that answers your question. We don't have a direct consulting service, but we're more than happy to talk to you, Trevor. Thank you very much for your question. Thank you as well, Carrie. Thank you for the question. I see we have a few more from Alicia here. When drawing conclusions after conducting user tests, how do you balance user needs and business needs? So maybe I'll throw that one over to you, Paul.
Well, that's a great question. How do I balance user needs and business needs? Well, I like to think that the right user is aligned with the business. So there's really not a challenge to balance them, because the user wants the same thing that the business wants. And we just have to meet each other, and the business needs to explain the value proposition to the user. The user has to understand it, do the things, and get the benefit, and then everyone wins. So in the context of user testing, I think I'm a big believer, contrary to what Euan said earlier, I prefer to test with my ideal customer rather than somebody that's more general, because then I get better insight into what they want. They already come in with certain biases in their mind, like they understand certain base qualifications. And so it's easier to balance their needs with mine. The user need is to get them to the aha or the business need. Well, it's both the user need and the business need. We need to get the user to the aha moment where they understand why they're doing the thing that they're doing, and they see the benefit. So I don't know, I guess I just see it as we are aligned. If you've got the right users that you're testing with, there's no problem of alignment.
Yeah. So one more question just in the Q&A. And then we just have one more thing after that, which is a bit of a surprise before we end. This is more of a quantity or a quantifiable question, which is a little bit intangible, but how much did Userbrain help you improve your product, Paul?
I would... A quantifiable question that you can't really quantify. Absolutely. Immeasurably, because there's nothing quite like seeing somebody else struggle through your software. And it's so hard in real life to get people to suffer through your software, because your friends will do it for you, but your friends want to please you. They're there to help you. They're not there to... The nice thing about Userbrain is it's completely anonymous. They are there, they've got a task. If they get through the test, well, whether they do the test, they get paid. So they're anonymous. They don't have a vested interest in whether they succeed or fail. They want to succeed, of course they do, but they're just going to do the thing, and they're going to be dispassionate about it, and they're going to tell you the truth. And I've actually had some users get angry at me because they didn't like my privacy policy well enough, or something about what I said just made them super uncomfortable because we're installing trackers. And as he was going through it, he was getting more and more agitated and agitated. He's like, okay. And then immediately the test was done. Bang, I got an email, delete my account. I'm like, okay, somehow we rubbed you the wrong way. That's not the normal experience. In fact, he was the only one who was ever that far out. But my point is, by getting users to suffer through that onboarding and doing the steps and watching where they run stuck and then helping them through it, without the user testing, there's just no way we could get that information. Our software would be utterly unusable. If we were left with the first onboarding, my goodness, it would be terrible. Like, no one would use this thing. And instead, we have a lot of really happy users, so who have made it through. And now we're just trying to unlock more by further refining that onboarding process.
Yeah. So thank you very much again for all your Q&A questions. And thank you again, Paul, for all of your answers here. Just before we go, we've got a few things that I would like to share. So first of all, if everyone can see my screen here, this is the pricing page of Userbrain, which one of you, sorry, I didn't catch the name, one of you asked about. So we introduced a starter plan recently, which comes in at 99 euros or $99 per month. I'm in Europe, so it's displaying in euros. But if you go onto the pricing page, maybe it will display in dollars, depending on your location. We also have a pay-as-you-go option. So if you're really just looking to test the water, don't forget you can get your 2 free credits to start off with. But then after that, if you are just looking to test on a very sporadic basis, then you can use the pay-as-you-go. We have the Pro plan, so that puts you up to 10 testers every month. You can also invite 30 of your own testers just with an invite link. And then the premium package we have is the agency. And again, with the agency package, you will actually get your own consultant, basically, as someone asked about before, who you can contact anytime if you're having issues. And that has a massive 30 tests every month and 90 with your own testers. And you can basically add the whole team and more to this package to collaborate with. Yeah, we also have an enterprise option, which is basically tailored to your needs completely. So you would really need to contact us, and we can discuss that. Apart from a few things such as video storage, which varies, all of our packages have the same features. Apart from the pay-as-you-go, which doesn't have our new automated transcripts feature. Again, this creates a transcript, a speech-to-text transcript from all of your videos, so it's much easier to harvest some insights. And it also does not have reports, but all of our subscription packages do. You can also save 2 months free by paying annually. But if you're getting started, maybe it's best to get going with the monthly package. So yeah, that's the pricing page. The next thing I wanted to share with you is we actually relaunched Userbrain on Product Hunt today, and it's a bit cringe-worthy of me, but please, if you would like to go and support us on there, I'm not going to hold you back. So that would be really kind if you could maybe support us or give us a few comments. That would be great. Happy to answer any questions on there as well. And one more thing. It's not letting me click this. But yeah, basically, you can book a call with us if you would like, again, a 30-minute session. You're more than welcome to book a call with one of our user testing specialists. And that is through this QR code. Please as well, if you have any further questions, contact us through the contact link that I shared, userbrain.com/en/contact. And yeah, that's all from my side. Paul, where can they find you? Where can they find Clockk?
Somebody mentioned it earlier, but I will just share the URL. You can find us at Clockk. Oops, not like that. Forgot the period. Clockk.com. You can find me at my name, Paul Doerwald, on Twitter and on LinkedIn. You can email me at paul@clockk.com. Happy to respond. Happy to brainstorm with you. I always love to meet other people. So let me know if there's any way that I can help. And yeah. Oh, and by the way, I have upvoted you on Product Hunt, and I expect the same favor when we launch in a little while.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Guaranteed. Just before we go, sorry, we have one more question just from Trevor here. And Trevor asks, would being a tester help us make better tests? And my answer to that is absolutely yes, because you will not only will you get to go into the tester's shoes and be in their space, but you will also get to see so many other great products that are in development. And you'll also see some good questions, some good tasks being asked, and you'll see some not so good tasks being asked, and you will really get into that mindset of a tester, and you'll get to really understand what makes you tick and what doesn't. So yeah, I would 100% recommend that. You are more than welcome to sign up as a tester. You can be a user and a tester. So yeah, and you'll also earn some money for every test that you do. So if you have some free time, then please, we'd love to have you as one of our 100,000 hand-picked testers. There is a little qualification exam that we do. But yeah, so thanks very much for the question, Trevor. And that was it for user testing in practice. Once again, you can get Paul on Twitter there. The website is clockk.com, Clockk with 2 Ks. Thank you very much for your time tonight, Paul, and for a really, really good presentation. Thank you to everyone who asked the question, and we will see you next time.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.